Anoa. You see the chat?
I see it. The Kissinger.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
You're now about to witness the truth.
it's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Hey, everybody. Uh-oh. It's looping. Oh, that's what it is. How's everybody doing this evening? Just wanted to say hi. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Sorry, I actually had the YouTube window open, so it was echoing, and I was a little confused at first. Forgive me, everybody. It's my first time going solo. But Ben, don't worry. Anoa Changa here, filling in for Benjamin Dixon tonight. This is the Benjamin Dixon Show. Ben is here with us. He's just, resting his jaws. Sometimes with the gift of gab, you gotta give yourself a break every once in a while. So thank you for joining us. Damn debate. I completely forgot we were having another one. It seems like we just had one. We go from having no debates to having a debate like every week. I could kind of get used to it. Would love to hear in a little bit what some of you guys thought about the debate tonight. I think I was looking at some of the comments in the room a little earlier, just when you guys first started. Yeah, Bernie was kind of giving her the business tonight. I think that Secretary Clinton did a good job of sticking to her points and doing what she needed to do, how she needed to do it. But at the same time, I feel like Senator Sanders definitely came out with the 1-2 punch. That Kissinger, when he hit her on I would not claim Kissinger, that whole line, that was beautiful. Younger folks, if you don't know who Henry Kissinger is, look him up. Older folks, if you need a refresher, look him up. Google is a tool. He is not someone any of us, especially when we're talking about going forward into a new age of how to engage and not be the policeman, not be the bulldog of the world. That is not the person we need advising or inspiring any of our leadership at all. Just wanted to get that out of the way. I really thought overall, I thought that this debate, I thought it was interesting that they were all women for the most part in this debate in terms of the commentators and even the moderators. I kind of feel like to some extent that was kind of, I don't know what you guys think, if that was a little biased or not, but it was interesting. I mean, when they went to, I don't know, because I watched it on my computer, so I don't know how it was when you guys watched on TV, but when they went to, there were 3 women sitting around. I don't really feel like there was any real depth in the commentary. So for me, it's like, yes, great. We have women doing stuff, but let's get people who can really get down to the substance. Like love Gwen Ifill, she asked questions that I don't think anyone really asked. She really put them on the spot tonight in a couple of different places, and I was really glad to see that when she asked them about race. But then, white people like to talk very politically correct about race and what we should be doing for people and stuff. But when she asked them about race and let's talk about white people, let's talk about poor white people, I thought it was very interesting when you looked at the difference in the 2 candidates and their responses. Now I live just real briefly about myself. Before I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, I lived in Charleston, West Virginia. I spent 7 years in my adult life living in West Virginia, living in Appalachia. Got to know a lot of different people, and I've met people from the Southern coal fields in West Virginia. So when she's talking about the coal fields and coal families like that, that's all very moving and stuff. But when we really get down to substance and what people really need in these areas, I'm sorry, but Hill is not having it. And when I talk to my friends back in West Virginia, they are definitely feeling the burn. I mean, people, low wage employment, no employment, underemployed, lack of job training. We need more emphasis on green energy and green technology. One of the reasons why we moved from Charleston, West Virginia was due to a chemical spill that tainted our drinking water for my family personally did not use the water for like 4 or 5 months after the fact. The official number given by the state government was about 2 weeks, but we were on bottled water, everything, for approximately 4 to 5 months. And I would go to a friend's house about an hour away to do laundry on the weekends. But one of the huge things with that was it was due to and actually in that case, non-existing regulations for above ground chemical tanks. Sorry to get off track a little bit, but I promise I'm tying it all in. One of the huge issues with that incident, it happened 2 years ago, January 2014, was the West Virginia water crisis, Elk River chemical spill. One of the huge issues, though, had to do with the stranglehold that industry has on state governments like West Virginia. West Virginia is heavily coal dependent, it's heavily oil and gas dependent. And if the industry didn't want certain environmental regulations, they would kind of dictate to the DEP what should and should not be done. So we saw the result of lax regulations in terms of the poisoning of our drinking water. This was an industrial chemical that was never exposed to a residential, public population in this manner. And they're still trying to study and figure out what the long-term effects will really actually be. So I've lived how big money in politics, how people's donations do actually dictate the decisions that they make and how they endanger people's public health, safety, and welfare in the process. So I agree. And I just want to let everybody know, just in case I'm going on my tangent, I'm sorry, I got in my little flow, my little zone stream of consciousness. Call-in number, just in case you want to call in and holler at us, 857-600-0518. But like when I'm listening to them talk about the differences, Bernie is still hitting it right where he needs to. I know people have criticism about his focus on economics. Economics absolutely matters. Economics of working middle class, of those who have been left out of the job market. That conversation needs to happen because it hasn't been happening. It hasn't been happening in any real consideration since FDR and the New Deal. And it's definitely time for a new deal. So you guys are hilarious in the chat room tonight. But yeah, so let's get into some of the things, some other things with the debate. I'd love to hear what anyone thinks about, keep it balanced, please. One of my personal pet peeves, and I'm not one of those, oh my God, don't criticize Hillary people. I think that balanced criticism, I'm not one of those people who cries if you say something about or you don't like Bernie. But what I like for people to do is be informed about what you're saying, and also, have a well-formed opinion. Don't just regurgitate talking points for either candidate, right? Or if you're calling from the other side of the aisle altogether, please come with me as something better than, they're going to destroy the country. Because you know what? All this foot stomping and the refusing to do anything. I'm a federal employee. I remember Ted Cruz's hissy fit that led to a government shutdown, and everybody can say, oh yeah, well, you guys got your back pay. But those 2.5 weeks where we didn't know whether or not we were going to get paid, because ultimately that's up to Congress to vote on and decide on, and the way they act is ridiculous. That's stressful and it's unnecessary. And the funny thing is when Congress, all those hissy fits and we're going to shut this down, they still get paid. So we definitely need a political revolution in this country. You haven't had anything that ridiculous since Newt had his little meltdown back in the 90s. So we really need a political revolution. We really need to send a message to those people sitting, not just in Congress in DC, but in our state houses across the country, to our governors, that we mean business, that when people say we're going to take back our country, no, seriously, we really are. because it's for the people, by the people, and this is what we are here to do. So, yeah. But I think that I see a good point here about about at one point that Hill was dismissive of the question in terms of healthcare and the insurance industry. And I think the fact that she was kind of stressing that if we got rid of the ACA, we would not have the insurance industry. And I'm kind of thinking, like, for me, I was kind of thinking like, okay, so you say like your donations don't really matter and your determinations and how you're making decisions, but here you are worrying about the insurance industry and not the millions of Americans who, yeah, they might have insurance now, but they can't really afford using the benefits under their policies, because it's more like, you know, emergency care only type insurance, like, you know, it's high premiums, high co-pays, when your deductible is sky high, when it's cheaper to pay out of pocket for care than pay your deductible. I mean, we have a serious issue. You know, I mean, everyone in the federal, when it's fascinating when particularly on the federal level, when you have people who want to argue about healthcare, because the care that they receive in Congress, right, and across the federal government is far superior to pretty much what everyone else receives in the rest of the country. So when everyone's trying to convince you that what you have is good enough, but theirs is way better, you got to kind of give them a side eye and do your due diligence and look it up. I do also want to just touch on something I saw real quickly. Someone said, don't worry, like FDR did to the Japanese what Trump is talking about doing to the Muslims. I think that we need to not be so nitpicky. You know, obviously when Bernie says he admires FDR, he's not saying I want to go put people in internment camps. Like that's not even, or that's not even in the jargon. That's not in the plan. That's not even the realm possibility. You can look at some good aspects. I mean, it is very clear when he talks about FDR, he's talking about the economic policies, because arguably, you know, the policies of the New Deal actually left out people of color in general, right? So when he's talking about New Deal-esque policies, I mean, it's just the theory that we need that type of stuff, not, okay, we have a caller. Bryce from Philly is on the line. Hi, Bryce.
I like the debate tonight. I thought that Bernie did a good job. He had a lot on African American issues, a lot about what's really going on and what he plans to do. I thought Hillary was just repeating everything Bernie was doing, trying to back up a record that is false, which serves. And I just kind of felt that, you know, the establishment just really is pushing her, and it's just like insane when a record is so bad. And also, did you see about how the Black Caucus is all supporting Hillary, and then they're slandering Bernie Sanders, and then of course you have.
I'm glad you brought that up. Go ahead. That's one of the things I had pulled up to talk about. Go ahead. I'll let you finish your thought, brother.
A lot of things, and the Black Caucus. I'm just confused. Like especially a lot of them at their age, they know Hillary's record. They know about what's really going on, and then they know about Bernie's record. And then this other congressman, John Lewis, said about, well, I didn't see Bernie with Dr. King. Like, what? Like, what? I'm just lost. And it's just like insane how we just kind of feeding into the lies. Why can't we see that Bernie is not only the right choice for America, but for Black America, for his people? He's the right choice. He is going to be the progressive president that we need. You know, I felt that Obama, you know, was only 50% progressive, not 100% the way that we wanted him to. But I still feel that Bernie would at least take over the other half and finish tremendously. And listen to TYT, Young Turks, they were saying that Elizabeth Warren should endorse Bernie and actually should come out and run with him as VP, and that would blow the door open for him to win.
There are quite a few people who agree with that, but go ahead. There are quite that what Senator Warren should endorse and should be the VP nominee. There's I'm sure there's a big movement trying to draft exactly that type of action to happen. But let's unpack that a little bit. Let's start back with, yes. So we had a bunch of endorsements happen on a couple of different ways. Let's start with the good news first. Cultural icon and social justice civil rights activist Harry Belafonte endorsed Bernie Sanders via video today, right? So if you haven't checked out the video, actually I'll drop a link in the chat room for everybody, just in case you guys haven't seen it by now. But it was pretty awesome. Not just because we love Harry, but when I was explaining to my daughter earlier, because she's familiar with his music. We actually have some of his music on our Christmas playlist. So she was like, "Oh, that's really awesome! I love Harry Belafonte." I was like, "No, it gets even better. It's not just because he's a really great musician, right? He's a cultural icon. He's also not only was he involved in the civil rights movement, in the 60s, he's continued that work. The organization that he founded, the Justice League New York, has been doing extraordinary work alongside other organizations within Black Lives Matter. They just recently, I saw on Twitter a while back, they had this really great tribute to fallen democratically elected African leader Patrice Lumumba, who was the first prime minister of the Congo. Before it was Zaire, before it was Democratic Republic of Congo. Actually my daughter did a report on it, and Western forces, including Belgium, and there was some information indicating the CIA was involved in overthrowing Lumumba because of the Cold War. We don't want Russia getting into anybody, so we'll overthrow democratically elected leaders because Russia. So, and leading, it doesn't matter if we cause destabilization in regions for 30, 40, 50 years ongoing. But the Justice League has done excellent work over the years, and Harry Belafonte has not just been, the benefactor and figurehead. He's been actively involved with that organization and all the staff that's involved. So to be clear, Harry Belafonte endorsed him, not the Justice League, but my point is that he has been active, involved on the community side, right? On the progressive side. Now, to the other point that that Brother Bryce mentioned, the CBC, now let's be clear, it was reported that the CBC endorsed Secretary Clinton. That is not true. Representative Keith Ellison and Representative Barbara Lee, both today, Representative Keith Ellison on Twitter, Barbara Lee on Democracy Now! Earlier today, both debunked that rumor. The CBC has not endorsed Secretary Clinton. There was no membership vote. There's no consensus on that. There is a CBC PAC made up of particular individuals from the CBC. So that's a special group of people, and their board for that PAC decided that they would endorse Secretary Clinton. So that's a completely, it's some of the same people, it's some overlap, but it's a completely different group of people. And the problem with that narrative is, right, people want to trot the CBC out on us as if that is a voice of Black Americans. This is what happens to any group, right? They trot the NAACP out on us as if they're the voice of Black America. They speak for all Black people when there's an issue. They trot the CBC out. They trot this group out. When really, we are not a monolithic group. We have many different ideas. We have many different issues. So, a lot, but there's a lot of fanfare around around this alleged CBC endorsement. And in fact, many of these people were the same people who endorsed her in 2008 when she was running against then Senator Obama, right? John Lewis, who is revered civil rights icon in his own right. He finally yielded to pressure from members of his district to withdraw his endorsement last time, and instead back Senator Obama. We would have hoped that he would have held off and listened to the people. This is someone who fought for the right to vote. Not only, we all know his story. We've all seen Selma. So, voting was so crucial and instrumental to his entire, life's work. So to just pile on as a super delegate before even half the country has even voted, it's disheartening. But at the same time, it is absolutely his right. He has his own reasons for doing what he's doing. And oh, sorry, I'm getting the hang of this. David from New York, you're live on the air.
I wanted. It's David in New York. I wanted to make
Hi, David. Yeah, David, you're here. I hear you. Hi.
the debate itself. I was actually impressed with Bernie. I thought that his foreign policy portion was actually impressive. I was surprised. I had my doubts, and I was kind of prepared to cringe because thus far he's been a little weak. Although I do agree with some of his stances, I was prepared for what we've already heard. So I was impressed with him showing his knowledge and expanding in that regard. I thought another thing I thought was really interesting was Clinton. On the last question before their closing remarks, when they asked about the leaders, I thought it was pretty significant that that she chose both President Obama and.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
In my mind, it was pretty obvious, even if she didn't say it outright, why she would choose two African American leaders. To me, that was just beyond blunt and obvious. Just complete pandering. Beyond that, a third point that I had was, and this goes to what Bryce was saying and what you and Noah were just discussing about the CBC PAC. I'm wondering if it was a mistake on Clinton's part to have this come out now. Specifically because of the donors and the funding for their group, I'm thinking it might be another misstep that now that comes out in response to their endorsement. But those are my thoughts. Thanks for taking the call.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, David. I mean, Ben always says this, that he has some of the most intelligent and dynamic listeners, and really, like, both of you have made this so easy for me so far. So yeah, absolutely agree. I just taking the first part with the President Obama. I mean, that's that riding real close, right? I mean, we have criticized as a community President Obama for not doing enough in several areas, and I think that it is unfortunate that people mischaracterize any type of critique or criticism. I mean, that's a strong man. He can tolerate some criticism. He can tolerate some critique. It's not that he did everything absolutely perfect and people are being unfair. Yes, there is some unfairness or not even unfairness, just blatantly ridiculousness from the Republican side. But that doesn't mean that any type of critique or saying that things could be better is somehow diminishing or discrediting Obama's work. I always say to people, I can tell you specifically one area I'm not happy with: education. I'm not happy with education. I'm not happy with the fact that Arnie Duncan was our Secretary of Education. Have you looked at what Arnie Duncan did to Chicago? And Rahm Emanuel just kicked it up several notches and kept it on going. So no, I am not happy with POTUS on the issue of education. I do not think we've made as much progress as we could have had we had a truly progressive plan for education in America versus what was good enough for Chicago was good enough for America was the same. No, Chicago is a mess education-wise, as is America. So yes, she is clinging to POTUS as if that is going to be her rock, but let's not be fooled. And y'all youngins or people who got short memories, go Google some of the exchange they had back in 2008. And even as Representative Clyburn is mulling endorsing her himself personally, go Google when Clyburn talks about how Bill Clinton cursed him out in 2008 because they lost South Carolina when Clyburn had pledged to be neutral, and he accused him of tipping the scale in front of in favor of President Obama. No, why would you even it's like being, it's like that. It's like, ladies, y'all know what I'm talking about. It's like that old boyfriend that is not good for you. You do have long history together. Y'all been through a lot. I mean, he comes in, he lays it right. But as my girl said, he really got another family someplace, and you just there for the good times when it's good for him. No, that is our relationship with the Clintons, and we just need to stop. We need to say no and go get a healthier relationship to be in. It is okay to start new relationships with new people. It is also to the part about the Mandela part is very interesting. One, Mandela was older than Bernie Sanders when he became president. Let's one of the people she admires, right? Mandela was older than Bernie Sanders when he became president. Mandela is also a democratic socialist. So let's just let that like gel for a little bit, right? So in her pandering, she endorsed two black men, two very strong, outspoken black men. And one of them was a democratic socialist who was older than our current favorite contender right now. So I think that when we have all these different arguments and stuff, it's like, well, you know, clearly, I mean, she's just throwing stuff out there and not really thinking about what she's doing. In regard to the other comments about the CBC and the funding, there's a really interesting article from May 2014 that talks about the CBC's own internal battle between members over the issue of taking money from Wall Street. And there are some members who, you know, some would say maybe have gone over to the dark side, are a little too cozy with certain lobbyists and stuff. I know there's some issues. I mean, I suggest everyone look it up because I did not have a chance to thoroughly look it up today, but I do know that there's some talk of Walmart board members and other people funding this CBC PAC. So it also raises further questions about, you know, people's ties and abilities to be impartial on certain issues. I mean, we should definitely always follow the money. The fact that there's a PAC that supports non-Black candidates, I think the wording says, that support our interests. You should be encouraging and supporting more Black candidates, more women candidates, more Latino and candidates of color across the country. White candidates don't need our little bit of money. So where's the money coming from? I mean, I don't know. But it's really interesting looking at that stuff. The other thing that I thought was really interesting that happened today, and I'm one of the admin. There's a little page on Facebook called Black Birder Coalition. I'm one of the admin. My co-admin posted an article from Charles Blow, and she said that the post gave her life. I actually agree with her. I think we probably needed a better intro, but it was a post about Charles Blow wrote an op-ed about Bernie splaining to Black people, and it all relates because we're having this conversation about the Black vote, the Latino vote, getting out the vote with people of color. Can Bernie Sanders, you know, spread that message? Black leadership all over the place is breaking their necks to say he's lying, he doesn't do this. By the way, everybody, that picture of Bernie marching with Dr. King in '63 is actually a picture from March 1965 of Selma, which, according to the official bios, anything Bernie Sanders has ever said is not him. So please stop sharing it, because you even have people like Jonathan Capehart on TV talking about, oh, they're lying. Bernie Sanders has never claimed that was him in that photo. There's a picture, everyone keeps circling it, saying, see, he was with Dr. King. He has said time and time again, he was at the March on Washington. The March on Washington had like 100,000 people on there, right? He's never actually said that he directly worked right specifically with Dr. King. He said he was at the March on Washington. So everyone needs to start blowing it out of proportion. He was a member of CORE. He did work on desegregating housing at the University of Chicago. Stick to what is already there in the facts. Stick to his record. Look at the record. Look at when he voted against juvenile crime bills in the 90s. Look at his record on the death penalty. Go listen to old speeches. There's facts there. You guys don't have to make up anything. You don't have to make him larger than life. And this goes into the Charles Blow piece. Overall, I did not agree with the tone, like with many of the different pundits and stuff. But overall, the piece was about how with several Bernie supporters who decide they want to engage Black voters, whether it's the vitriol that happened after Netroots and the Seattle Black Lives Matter interruption, or even the way some people have kind of freaked out about the Coates reparation stuff. Granted, I was critical of it, not because I disagree with Coates in terms of reparations, but I disagree with having a one-sided conversation when we're in a presidential debate and we're talking about people needing to earn our vote. We need to have a balanced conversation across the board about people earning our vote, about engaging anyone. And going back to the Blow piece, the Bernie splaining, again, like the picture that's not even an accurate picture, throwing that out there as if, and people do this. My co-admin on a couple different pages, I help co-admin and stuff. We've had people who Bernie splain to us. No, it's not just some right wing or Hillary conspiracy theory. Same thing with the brain. It's not, maybe it's overblown. Maybe it's an overestimate or over exaggeration, because Twitter and Facebook, social media is not a real, a really good sampling of real life and what people value and believe when they're talking to people. But at the same time, there is a lot of stuff that goes on with the, oh, he's just the best for everybody. Well, okay, but here's the thing, white people, I'm in love with you. Black folks, we don't like hearing from you about what's best for us, right? We've been hearing that for generations now. And quite honestly, every time that is said, it's only to get us to go along with you. And then y'all hit us with the woo-woo, and it takes us a long time to recover again. Just talk to people, you know. And I think with the piece, when Blow mentions that, you know, Sanders is a candidate, he does acknowledge, which is great because a lot of them don't, that he's a candidate of integrity. He does have a good record, right? Which counters everything else everybody was trying to say all the rest of the day. He does actually have a good record of his own. He is a good candidate. You don't have to sell people on false hopes. You don't have to build this like, oh, he's going to save us. I wrote a piece not too a while back about how I felt when the decision was made to not bring charges against the cops involved in the Tamir Wright shooting. I have a 12-year-old son who got a paintball gun for Christmas. And I wrote my piece and everyone was like, oh, this is so moving. This is so great, you know, blah, blah, blah. But I had people respond to my post. I had white Bernie supporters respond to my post like, well, Bernie's going to make this all better. Okay, so I'm going to pause. Please stop. Because no one can make everything all better. Nobody's perfect. He's not God. As much as we like to, you know, talk about how he's a Jewish socialist, and we remember another Jewish socialist, ha ha he. He's not the Messiah. And you know, we don't expect him to be that for us. We want people to level with us and treat us like we're competent adults when they're talking to us about democratic politics, engaging. I mean, you know, we need to engage. But on the flip side, so I do think that there is an issue with how people are trying to engage Black voters in particular. Just talk to people about the record. Just talk to them, you know, find out what people value and then talk. One of my best friends is a libertarian. She's from West Virginia. We have nothing in common politically. We have everything in common in terms of our families and what we value. And I find that we actually have a lot of common ground on things when we talk about what we value versus just straight political ideology. And I think that's a better tool for a lot of people. So while yes, the mainstream media does seem to have this issue with the way they go after Bernie and, oh, he's just pandering for the Black vote. But I mean, we cannot ignore the fact that he does on the Campaign Zero, you know, little chart evaluation sheet that was laid out, that he does have, last I checked, it was 9 out of 10 of the categories, as Ben has said previously on the show. You know, Hillary may at this point have like 6 out of 10. You know, he did let Black Lives Matter activists, even despite how people may have felt it was wrong for them to interrupt him, he did let them, he stepped out of the way and let them speak. When Black Lives Matter finally were able to get to an event that they weren't blocked out of, right? They were finally able to, well, actually it was the AUC Shut It Down group here in Atlanta. We're able to get to a Hillary event. We're able to challenge her to push back on her issues in terms of taking her PACs and her campaign, taking money from private prison lobbyists and financial bundlers, as well as her death penalty stance, among other things. John Lewis and Usher and others were right there to shut them down and usher them out. No pun intended. But, you know, that whole campaign inside, it's as if that there is no room for pushback. Whereas Bernie Sanders, his campaign has embraced the criticism and the critique. Now, he's not going to just roll over and just do whatever you say, but I really do feel like, and I don't know what the rest of you think from reading the racial justice plan. And if you have not read the racial justice plan, you definitely need to, especially if you're going to try and talk to Black voters. It's a very thorough plan. Could it go further? Sure. But there's room for us as a movement, as a group, to really engage in dialogue and create change on a level that has not happened before. That is not a diss to President Obama, but we did not demand that of him when he was going into office. We were thankful to have someone to bring us out of the very bad position we were in 2008. And that's fine, but we've learned from that lesson that we need to hold people accountable. We need to be very clear with our requests going forward. He is a responsive leader. I absolutely agree with that. Upstate Raider, he is a responsible leader. So to the piece earlier, Charles's Blow piece earlier, like I agree. We need to stop trying to pin people as some savior to save Blackness. But I really feel like a lot of what's happening and a lot of pushback against Bernie is a lot of anxiety and angst that people have because President Obama was not the Messiah they made him to be in their head. He didn't sell us any fake promises. You know, he didn't promise to save Blackness in America. I know that people don't agree. I know people think that he should have done more. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I say to people, we did not demand that of him. You know, the LGBT community, Latino activists had very specific demands in hand. We was just happy to have a Black man in office, and we have to be better about that. Even right now today, when we talk about how people need to earn our vote, we're only saying that to one campaign. Why do the Clintons get to just waltz in and magically have our loyalty? I mean, I would love, I know Benjamin Dixon says it all the time, I would love to hear from Black Hillary supporters. I don't want to hear from white people. I'm sorry, because I had enough of that this week too. People telling me about what I ought to be doing on both sides, because it's not just, you know, Bernie supporters, whatever. The media does not pay attention to at all the very nasty, condescending, and racist stuff that is said by members of the Hillary Clinton camp, from her supporters in general. The 2008 Pumas are back and in full force, and they feel like somebody owes them something because they didn't win the first time. So we really do need to have real conversations and dialogue with people. So I would love to hear, specifically tell me what exactly is it that Hillary has done for Black America that we owe her our allegiance, because I don't know what it is. I definitely don't know what Bill Clinton has done. I can tell you a whole bunch of things that he has done that we shouldn't even utter his name. He should be persona non grata. You know, so there's a lot that has happened. There's a lot that's going on, and we can't just, you know, listen to the little talking points and stuff like that and say, oh, well, you know, Charles Rangel said today that I don't know a Black person who knows Bernie. Really, Charlie Rangel? Seriously? Why don't you go holler at Jesse Jackson? Bernie campaigned for him. How about you go do that? Google it. There's YouTube video. I mean, it's very disingenuous what's happening. And I really think we need to push back against the CBC. You know, the CBC has held this very revered position to some extent. I mean, they're like a dinosaur to some extent, because it's like, really, what has the CBC really been doing? Certain members of the CBC are awesome. Shout out to Barbara Lee, who went on Democracy Now! And set the record straight, even though she is not endorsing. And I don't believe in forcing anyone to endorse. I mean, people want to go out their way and ask her to endorse, that's your business. But Barbara Lee is someone who stands on her convictions. She's another one that has a very stellar record. Keith Ellison has endorsed, and he's active and engaged and involved, and also has a good record. So I really think that we need to weigh some of these attacks with a grain of salt on both sides. I think that we need to look at the facts. And when everyone says, oh, but that was just Bill, that wasn't Hillary, really? That makes sense to you? They're a couple. They're a deal. Some say part of the reason why Obama did not make her vice president was he didn't want to have to deal with Bill Clinton in terms of decision making and stuff. Like, let's be real. She has already said that he's going to be her advisor on several issues. If we say he has poor judgment, why would we want him informing her on policy matters, whether it's the economy, whether it's criminal justice reform? I mean, why should the people who destroyed criminal justice get to? Why are we going to give them a chance to mess it up again? That doesn't even make any sense to me. But if you have a good reason, I mean, that's cool. I'd love to hear it. Or people just be real. You're capitalist. You are benefit from the existing system, and you're not really worrying about the rest of the community, because the rest of the community is struggling and it's been hit. And look it up. 2008 financial collapse did disproportionately negatively impact our Black and Latino communities. I mean, look at what's going on in we rarely ever talk about Native American communities. Look at what's going on in Native American communities. What type of investment activity and stuff has happened, and what type of proposals are going forward. I think another interesting thing tonight, which Hillary hasn't done in a while, but South Carolina's coming up, so of course she has to talk about dead Black people. She was name dropping again tonight. Which I absolutely, as a Black mother, I absolutely hate every time she does that. And I understand there are Black mothers of fallen people at the hands of police out there who are endorsing her and supporting her. And, you know, I respect your right to do what you're doing, but considering the importance of your children, of your family members to Black people across the country, I really wish that this would have not been some political ploy that you've been used in, because I want to know, what was Senator Clinton, where was Secretary Clinton, then Senator Clinton, where was she at when Sean Bell was gunned down in New York City? you know, I know Amadou Diallo was probably at the tail end at Bill's time in office, if I remember the dates correctly. I believe that was 99, early 2000s. So she wasn't actually in a public office yet. But where was it? That was a case of public outrage. Where was she at when the Louisiana case was going on? I mean, like, people are saying, like, oh, Hillary's like, where is this set of interest? Like tonight when she said, it was so disingenuous when she said, well, now we know more than we ever do before. Huh? Where you been at? Like, where you been that you didn't know that this type of stuff going on? You didn't see the Rodney King beating that we all saw? I mean, there are plenty of cases. You live from New York, Luis Baez, honey. Like, so it's disingenuous for her to be on TV saying, well, we now know more because we have, you know, cameras and recordings of things. No, now we have proof, definitive proof. That still doesn't really mean anything. I mean, she still hasn't really developed a plan or come out very forcefully on anything, particularly many of the calls of various arms of the Black Lives Matter movement. And that's disheartening. It's unfortunate. And I understand there's skepticism with Senator Sanders, but you cannot deny that if people band together and demand action, it actually happens. If we demand that Congress act or they lose their job, it happens. If they don't want to do what we say, then we replace them. But we have to be active and engaged. We have to make sure this goes. You know, you guys, I'm talking and I'm just talking. And I don't know if it's because you like hearing me talk or whatever. I know the chat's going on, but please call in. Come talk to me. Because I can just go on and on and on. But come talk to me. Number is 857-600-0518. Let me know what you're thinking tonight. You know, there's a lot going on. You know, tomorrow they're both in Minnesota for a dim dinner tomorrow. And during the day, Senator Sanders is going to be at a Black America Forum sponsored by Minnesota Neighborhoods Organizing for Change. And they were both invited, but Secretary Clinton has a previous engagement. I wonder if what that is. Is it another fundraiser? I'm not sure. It seems that whenever these forums come up, she only makes it for the televised ones. Case in point, the BET Criminal Justice Forum, which BET did not air on television. I believe it was like, I don't know, the Nutty Professor or something was on TV instead, but it did stream online and it's available on YouTube as well. Bernie Sanders, Ben Carson, and Martin O'Malley were the only three out of everyone on both sides to actually participate. The Families First Forum, another forum that Secretary Clinton did not participate in, that happened in Iowa approximately a week before the Brown and Black Forum, which aired on television. But the Families First Forum was another live stream forum. At the time, Secretary Clinton was actually in Palo Alto fundraising. And so when we're talking about who's really willing to sit down and listen to the issues, and these are, people say, oh, well, that was Iowa, or oh, that's Minnesota. Well, these are places, these are active and engaged community groups. These are places, oh, yay, a caller. Daniel from Oklahoma is on the line. Daniel, how are you?
How you doing? I've been listening to you here for, I don't know, about the last 30 minutes or so, and you've just been killing it. You've been really speaking my mind in a lot of ways.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm a little nervous, but I appreciate the compliment. Thank you. Yeah.
So one thing I was hoping to call in about, something I've been encountering for, well, I guess a while now, but to some degree more in about the last week, and that is I'm a white guy from Oklahoma, and I really believe that Bernie is the best for many minority groups. I think he's probably one of the most genuine people. He actually has like a long history of caring about the issues for people of color. And I find that it's very difficult to be respectful and attempt to convey that to people of color on Twitter or different social media because it sounds so presumptuous. Once again, I'm just a white guy from Oklahoma. I don't experience these things firsthand. And I find that it's really difficult to converse and not sound, you know, in a way, just white splaining, you might say. You know, like, how do I convey this without coming off that way?
Yeah, I know that's a question I get a lot in Facebook messages too. Like I'm able to talk to a lot of people and interact because I am so involved. So we're already all so involved. So it's easy for us to have a conversation with each other. But to talk to someone who's maybe skeptical, I do it no matter who I'm talking to. I had to do this with my mother, and I'm about to do it with my aunt. My mom and my aunt will turn 60 this year. I'm sorry, you guys, for telling your age and telling your business, but they're 60-year-old Black women. My mom is going to phone bank for Bernie for the first time. She's never really been involved in a political campaign. We're doing this the first time together, both of us being involved. But I just talked to her. I just talked to her. I asked her about what she valued, and I explained to her why it was important to me. That's a little different because she's my mother. My aunt told me today on Facebook she has no intention on voting. She definitely is not voting for Bernie Sanders, no matter what I say to her. Well, I asked her, I said, please just give me 15 minutes and just hear me out. Again, that's different because they're related to me. But I think in talking to people, the biggest thing is like connecting people about values. Like, what do you value? What are the issues you're concerned with? Because I know, a lot of people get snappy and like, well, we already know. But I find that a lot of people really actually don't know. A lot of people who say they do know the record, they do know this, that, and the other, or they'll counter well, he voted for the 94 crime bill. Well, that is true. He did. And today, if we're to believe the CBC that their judgment is better than everyone else, most of them backed it wholeheartedly without reservation. I think Bernie explained then his rationale. He's explained now, in hindsight, his rationale. And I think we need to look at the consistency. So I just really look at talking to people. I think it's easier when you do actually have a personal relationship with the person to talk to, or at least you build a rapport of talking to them. I think just showing up, I think the difference in terms of like, when, with white splaining is that, and I've had this problem, some of y'all have seen me in videos or on Ben's show, or people read articles, but I have people who will challenge me on things again, like the picture that's not Bernie. Well, how do you know it's not Bernie? That could be a Hillary lie. Dude, I'm trying to tell you right now, like, that's not Bernie. Just please stop. So, I think there's different levels, but when you're talking about like the issues, or at least if you suggest that maybe, I go back to the racial justice plan. I really do. Because I really think when you start there, the 5-point plan, talking about the 5 types of violence inflicted upon communities of color and individuals of color, I think that's a very strong piece to start from and to talk about or whatever. But I think that even if we feel that Bernie is the best, like for some people psychologically, just that phrase just sets people off and they're going to shut down on you. I have found that just talking to people myself as well. So there's another sister that it's called the Kinfolk Collective, generally really agree and enjoy her posts and stuff. She has a piece today similar to the Charles Blow piece. And the thing with you is that everyone always says, well, we're not saying that Hillary's better, but my only issue when we have all these different pieces that hit on Bernie only is that the default to people who are looking at all this is that Hillary must be better. She must be more deserving of the vote. And that's simply not true. You got to know your audience. You got to know who you're talking to, because for some people, hitting Hillary and going negative may not work, particularly if you're talking about older Black people who do, for whatever their personal reasons are, highly respect her. So, it might be easier. I don't think you should discount yourself because you're just a white guy. No one's just a white guy. No one's just a Black girl or whatever. But I think we all have relationships and stuff that we need to build on and try to work from there. Okay, I have Ken from Hawaii on the line. Hi, Ken.
Hey, how are you, Anoa? I really want to agree with everything that you said. One of the persons on here actually mentioned about the 1994 crime bill and Bernie's comments in regard to that. With the converse of that with Hillary Clinton's viewpoint of calling, young Black men, they're no longer just, thugs. They're just called thugs now and predators. And you can definitely see, in regards to Bernie, what he was saying was, if there's a bunch of, unemployment and, not much resources for the communities that were there, how could they not be bitter and turn to, other types of things, drugs or crime or whatever it is? And I think that he has a understanding more than just, they're just, people are just bad people. And, it's more of the environment creates the individual. And I know that, when you talk about, social justice and whatnot, that's a very important thing. All across, even, I mentioned from Hawaii, but, there's in more affluent communities, you're not going to see the type of problems that you'll see in very poor communities.
Yep.
And that goes all the way around. So I definitely agree with what you're saying. And I thought Bernie had a wonderful night tonight, especially when he talked about, getting the type of money that Clinton was getting, Hillary Clinton was getting, from the different types of corporate money. So I just want to say that, and really enjoy the show. Thank you.
Thank you. Agree. There has been systematic disinvestment across the board in our communities, whether we're talking about our inner city, urban communities. I mean, when you look at the destruction done, whether we're talking about just the early highways coming through and just totally decimating Black neighborhoods, or we look at the construction and isolation of concentration of poverty in terms of when we built the traditional public housing that now is being torn down and replaced with mixed income housing. That's a whole nother story. But there has been a lack of investment in terms of meaningful jobs. I saw a post, there's a young man here in Georgia who's a Bernie supporter. He's down in Columbus, Georgia. I saw a post he posted about they are getting Columbus, Georgia, which is smaller than Atlanta. Columbus, Georgia is getting its 20th Family Dollar. Why do you need 20 Family Dollars in a small metro area? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. We need to have meaningful investments. We need to have job training. Bernie doesn't mention it as much, and I would really wish you would mention it more, talking about, because not everyone's going to go to college, but we need to have job training. We need to have more emphasis in terms of getting people involved, whether it's in union apprenticeship programs. I mean, there are other things involved, but definitely we need engagement, we need infrastructure, we need after school programs, we need youth sports. I mean, people need to be active and engaged and involved, and children need to understand that there is something for them, that somebody cares. And I'm not saying that people's parents don't care, but it's hard. So if you're working and barely able to take care of your children, or if you have to work 2 jobs to try and take care of your children, then what is that? Then who's taking care of them? Who's looking out for them? Who's making sure that they're having the things that they need? Another reason why we should be paying people a better wage too, right? Families making a better wage are in better capacity to take care of their children and provide for them and do all these other great, wonderful things that the traditionally solidly middle class families have been able to do as well. So that was a really great point, I think, about the lack of investment. And I think Bernie sees that. And it's not just, our inner city, communities. We're seeing a lot of similar issues when we start looking at, rural communities. And you also have these little pockets of urban areas in rural communities too. Again, I mentioned I lived in Charleston, West Virginia. My dad would call and check wherever I lived. My dad always checks the news, always. That's just how he's been. When I lived in Charleston, my dad would check the news because Charleston actually has some projects. West Virginia has projects, smaller, but they have some. They actually have gangs, and it's on a drug corridor from Detroit. So you have a lot. It's heavier in Huntington, West Virginia, but Charleston gets some heat too. So my dad saw this string of shootings, and he was freaking out. He was like, I live in Atlanta, and you live in Charleston, West Virginia. How is it that your neighborhood just had more shootings than mine? I mean, okay. I'm talking to EJ from Oakland on the line. EJ, how you doing tonight?
Doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm just going off here. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to leave you hanging. How you doing?
Oh, no problem.
Okay.
No, I was just saying that, I'm still undecided in terms of Hillary and Bernie.
Okay.
I just, it's a hard decision for me because when it comes to race, I am Black. And when it comes to race, they're both milquetoast, when it comes to the issue of the best.
Okay.
And so, it's for me this year is just a really, it's almost like a no-win situation.
Why do you say that?
Well, because like I said, not to be repetitive, but they're both milquetoast when it comes to the issue of race. I haven't hardly heard Bernie even mention Flint or, the systematic killings, of Black people all over this country. I know he's mentioned it here and there, but it's almost as if he kind of shies away from it.
Have you read his racial justice platform?
No, actually, I have not read his, not entirely, no.
Have you read Hillary's? Does she have one? I'm not being funny. I haven't actually looked into it to see if she. Well, I only asked because the last I checked, she hasn't actually put forth really anything meaningful. And I know he took the criticism that he did get before and did put forth something that is rather a good start for us to build on. I mean, I'm not undecided like you, and I definitely respect your opinion and your position, but I do think that he has talked about it. But I don't think the constant name dropping, I don't think that really, I mean, I get to the point where I want to know what that means. Because like, for instance, tonight, I mean, it was definitely for points that Hillary was able to name the name of someone who was killed in Milwaukee. But I don't know, policy wise, I haven't seen anything that's actually backing up that alleged concern. Whereas with Bernie, I have actually read and seen that policy wise. I've listened to him talk about it in a couple of different speeches. So for me, I mean, that type of stuff, I think I'll look at that type of stuff in terms of what is, like, who do we have a better chance of having an honest dialogue with, is how I look at it. Because again, like I was saying earlier, I think it's disingenuous when we say that, well, we never knew this was happening. I mean, people may not have really understood the magnitude that cops actually do lie when we didn't have videotape and stuff like that, right? Or what just happened today, I forgot to mention it, was the Brooklyn DA, a brother, did secure a manslaughter conviction against the cop who killed Akai Gurley in Brooklyn. And it's like the first conviction, I think, in like 10 or 12 years or something like that in New York City. But I really would encourage you to just look some more at their different platforms, just to see kind of how they differ and what works for you best. But we have another caller, Bobby from the Bay Area. You're on the line. Bobby?
I really appreciate the insight you provide and your expertise. It's really, you could do this full time. But
well, I don't have any expertise. I'm just a chick who likes to run her gabs sometimes. So, but thank you, I appreciate it.
So, I've worked for huge multinational corporations for a long time, and I've seen the most disgusting behavior. I mean, they lay off women right when they get back from maternity leave. People who have cancer get fired. It's ruthless, right? And they're systematically stripping the United States of wealth and assets. These companies, they have no allegiance to the United States of America, and the people that run these companies are multi-billionaires. They don't care if the entire country lives in poverty. We're just an asset base, a resource extraction location. They don't care if they're selling to us or to China. And I think that's the gist of what the Bernie Sanders thing is saying. America's becoming a third world nation. Workers have no rights. This economy means you have a job for 2 or 3 years without benefits, stagnating wages, and the billionaire class just keeps on getting richer and richer, and Wall Street plays their manipulation games. And I think what he's saying, the main defeat in him and probably Hillary Clinton, is he's saying it's our government and manipulate it to help people, whereas other people want to use the government to further free markets and open up new pathways to resource extraction around the world. It's a very different dichotomy between the two, and I don't think people are getting that. Now, Bernie Sanders is an imperfect candidate. He's not perfect, but what he's offering, I think, is voice to the people, which is really interesting because I don't think we've had that, not in my lifetime.
Right. Well, not from a major party candidate. No, definitely not. No. And I know that's one of the criticisms is that he should have, some people who are more vocal say that he should have run Green Party or independent or whatever. But we also all know the struggle. And I don't fault him for running the way he's running. And I do agree with you, though, about giving voice to the people. I mean, we have seen a runaway Congress. I mean, Congress directly represents the people that elect and put them there, and they don't listen. They have their own ideas. They have their own concerns. They're outright disrespectful and defy the president, and it has to stop. Like, it really does. And then we do have these corporations who have gotten sweet deal after sweet deal. I mean, it was so interesting listening to, Secretary Clinton has repeated this several times now about Dodd-Frank. We can break up the big banks with Dodd-Frank. We can put people in jail. We can do this, but it hasn't happened. I mean, Eric Holder, I'm an attorney. As a young attorney, I really admire Eric Holder for a lot of, things. One of the things I do not admire the Eric Holder DOJ, and we'll see if Loretta Lynch does anything, which I admire her too, but I don't know that there would actually be actual Wall Street prosecutions from, there were none from him. I mean, it was egregious and atrocious behavior happening. Even after all that, bailing out and stuff, you still had people turning right around and still engaging in the same lavish and ridiculous behavior. And there has been no repercussion for any of that. So I absolutely agree with you that I feel like the voice that Bernie gives. And back to EJ's point, though, about he doesn't really feel like, when it comes to the issue of race, that Bernie's really, hitting it the right way. I don't necessarily disagree that he could say more and do more about race. I don't necessarily disagree with that comment, but I think we understate when we're looking at these two candidates. I think we understate what he has said and done, because he's done things that no candidate on a trail has done before. I mean, like, okay, some people say, oh, he was just pandering, but I really do believe that when he went to Baltimore, that was a sincere, evaluation. So new caller. Okay. Hi, Paulo from the Bay Area. You're on the line. How are you doing? Hello?
Kind of wanted to switch gears a little bit, maybe, if that's cool. I just want to just appreciate how Bernie really stepped up his game with foreign policy, how he name dropped Mossadegh and Sihanouk.
Yes.
King Sihanouk of Cambodia, and the fact that he mentioned domino theory. These are things that I don't think many Americans might have learned about them superficially in school, but I'm just so impressed with that, with how he just casually kind of name dropped it, where he just casually name dropped it. Now I was impressed with that. He really slayed that his foreign policy. Like, he stepped it up way more than
he did
than his last.
He did.
Debate.
Definitely. And I definitely, there's the age-old adage that you have to know where you've been to know where you're going. And I know there are some people who probably would say, well, he's talking about all the stuff that already happened. But you really have to know the history of American imperialism, of the way we have engaged in foreign policy, to understand how we have gotten into so many of these different world skirmishes and to understand a path forward. Part of the reason why the Middle East is the way it is because American and British, interference in that region. Part of the reason why Central Africa is the way it is because of Western European and American interference. So I definitely, referencing Cambodia, the way he came down on Kissinger, again, everybody, if you haven't heard of Kissinger, you don't really understand the reference, Google it. Interesting note, interesting factoid, as my daughter would say from one of her little shows. Just real quick, Cara, I'm gonna get you just real quick, but Kissinger dated Gloria Steinem for a period of time. So how about that? Yeah, Hillary has very interesting friends on her team. Cara from Los Angeles, yay, woman, girl power. Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to respond to what someone else said earlier about Bernie Sanders wasn't speaking out enough about the issues that concerned Black people. And I feel like there's a really great moment, not in the debate that happened recently, but I think it's last week's Democratic debate, where he outright calls for the governor to be fired.
Of Flint, yes. Governor Snyder, yes.
Yeah,
yes, yes.
Nobody else has gone so far as to say this is a person who's not qualified to do his job. And he doesn't, he says that it's a racial issue, that if it were a white suburban neighborhood, things would have been handled differently. And he directly points out that this is a lower income, disproportionately Black community that's affected. And he says it's egregious. And he says that he should step down. And that if he were president, that would be one of the things that he would be calling for.
Well, and then also going along with your point, with when all the stuff just blew up with Rahm Emanuel, and everyone's still in Chicago actively working towards neutralizing Rahm. He also, in that instance, came out very clearly against Rahm, indicating that anyone involved in a cover-up needed to be investigated and stepped down as well. He also went to Chicago. When he went to Chicago, he also went and met with youth activists from the community and listened to them and engage with Black youth activists as well as Latino activists in the community to hear what people have to say. So that's what I find reassuring about my faith in the ability to move forward in terms of these various discussions. Again, the deportation, like someone in chat room mentioned it, the answer and responses about deportation, it's funny how that's one of those areas where, Hillary tries to throw President Obama under the bus, but she's still trying to cling to him. Same thing with the Wall Street donations, but Bernie was right and pointed out, even as I think it was even last summer, she reiterated the calls for deporting, children who have escaped violence in their communities. I understand the concern about what they go through to get here, but how is sending them back? How does that send a message to anyone? And just to point out, as I mentioned earlier, there is yet another forum. This forum is specifically it's entitled Black America Forum with Senator Sanders. It's sponsored by the Minnesota Neighborhoods Organizing for Change. It's happening tomorrow. Both candidates were invited to attend. Senator Sanders is the only one that's making himself available to be there. And if this is anything like the Families First Forum, I suggest everyone get on YouTube and look at Families First Forum. If you guys want me to come back on the show, because we're getting ready to wrap up, it's late. Tweet Ben at the BPD show. You can also tweet me at Miss Nono ESQ. I've had much time, but seriously, check out these different forums and stuff online. The Families First Forum was awesome because actual activists from across the Midwest, Black Latino activists across the Midwest, they actually got to ask Senator, and some from the South, because there was a sister who owned a daycare center from Alabama that got to talk to him and Jane at that event too. These were actual activists, actual community people who asked direct questions. Secretary Clinton could not make herself available to be there because she was fundraising with her, her expensive plate dinners in Palo Alto. So there have been forums like this that he has made himself, and he knows that he has to let people get familiar with him and what he's talking about. Some people have said that he should have done this sooner, maybe, but hindsight is 2020. He's doing it now. He's doing it. The other campaign is not. They just assume that they have the votes and that's it. And that to me speaks volumes. One last thing, go check out Van Jones on Twitter. Van Jones is rather balanced. He gives critique he's probably the only pundit I've seen that is actually balanced. Van Jones will give praise to both. He'll critique both. One of the things that he said tonight in a tweet that I thought was excellent was, Hillary Clinton rushed off to go to Flint to admonish a governor that she does not know at all. That's the easy thing to do, especially since he's from the opposite party. But where's she at on her boy Rahm, who's like her mentee, right? She has said that she supports Rahm and she believes that he cares about Chicago and is doing a good job. People, particularly Black people in Chicago, have a completely different viewpoint of all that. So again, thank you so much for letting me be with you tonight. The debate cut us short and it's late, so Ben has to get to bed. I have to get to bed. You all have to get to bed. Have a great evening. Have a great rest of the week. And hopefully you guys will want to have me back. Thanks. Good night.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Crazy mother.
If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.